Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers on the AI with Arun show. In this episode, we have the pleasure of hosting Paul, who is the Chief Marketing Officer at ISG Information Services Group. Paul is a seasoned leader with over 2 decades of experience in product marketing and technology. He has held key roles at major firms like HP, Dell, and Infosys. He has successfully led branding and marketing transformations and is currently driving ISG's efforts in AI and emerging technologies. Paul also serves as the chair of the ISG Research and is the board chair of the Gastric Cancer Foundation. He holds a bachelor's in computer science from the Brandeis University and an MBA from the Wharton School. So, in today's episode, we'll dive into his insights on harnessing AI and navigating the provider ecosystem. So, Paul, a very warm welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, Arun. It's so nice to be part of the Arun Show.
Absolutely. Thank you, Paul. So let's get started. So, Paul, let's talk first about AI adoption. So, at ISG, you advocate for balancing AI-driven cost optimizations with innovations. So, how do you really help clients overcome this pilot purgatory trap, where companies are experimenting with AI, but they're struggling to scale? And the reason I asked this question is because in 2025 predictions that ISG came out with, you guys actually emphasize this duality.
That's right. No, this is a great way to start. This is the crux of it all. And for people that may not know ISG, we're a AI-centered research and advisory firm, and we influence over $200 billion of total contract value every year. And I just say that because it gives us a lot of visibility across the ecosystem of providers and all of the Global 2000 enterprises. And as they're all trying to adopt AI, there's two things happening as they try to scale. There's the AI ops, or just kind of leveraging the ecosystem so that IT, more than anything else, and software development, testing, everything around the IT side gets more efficient and fast to free up dollars so that they can deploy AI at scale and build new platforms. But what's funny is if you talk to any senior executive, which I have at Fortune 500 firms that are like a level below the CEO, every CEO goes to them and I'm just going to translate. They basically say, push the AI button. I want AI, make AI happen, do AI. You don't just do AI. So to make it scale, you've got to have the data correct. So there's a lot of data engineering work that we're helping our clients do. You have to reimagine your basic core operating models of how to do technology transformations. We might get into this later, but there's a lot around governance and making sure you don't get into trouble or break a regulation, that kind of thing, or ethical issues. And then if you don't have the right infrastructure, you won't be able to scale. It could be your storage, your compute, your power. People forget about the networking infrastructure. That could be a choke point. So those are sort of the fundamental elements: the governance, the data, the operating model, the making sure you have the infrastructure. And then, like, as clients do that, then they'll be in a nice spot to start figuring out how to really push that AI button at scale.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Paul. So, Paul, just taking a step back, you have so many client interactions. Like I said, you speak regularly with all the Fortune 5000 customers, CXOs, CEOs. How do you bring in AI in your own interactions with them?
Well, we do it in a number of ways. In a way, we're sort of typical of what everybody's going through. We're like, how do I use AI right now? And everybody's using AI. First of all, enabling functions like marketing, sales, customer service, which we're not really a customer service type company in that way, like with a call center. But we have our core of what we do is technology sourcing and advising for technology sourcing. We built a platform that's centered on AI or infused with AI called Tango. And that Tango platform allows us to work with our clients in a faster 24/7 collaborative way between our clients, our providers, law firms. And it really has changed the game we still have the human element. There's still the human interaction. That doesn't go away, but it's just more 24/7 efficient. We have a kind of a collaborative war room or work room that everybody can see. It's more transparent and visible. And yeah, so that's a big one. I'd say the other one where we're bringing AI to our clients pretty aggressively is around contract management. The typical Fortune 500 company has 56 service providers, and they'll have other type of providers as well, software or hardware providers. And to be able, they all have contracts. And we've been pretty good at ISG. That's one of our core competencies is sourcing contract management. But now we have this AI capability to be able to pour through these hundreds of pages and cull out key aspects so you can treat these relationships way more strategically. So it's just typical AI. I wouldn't say it's an LLM, but it's the concept of looking at vast amounts of data, connecting the dots, and then coming up with insights and recommendations. So we do that with sourcing with Tango and contract management with some of the tools we call GovernX.
Those are great insights, Paul. Thank you for educating our viewers. Paul, so let's take a look about different industries because you work in so many different industries. And as we can see from all the media reports and the public case studies that get published, some of these industries are truly leading in AI, whereas some others are lagging. So in your opinion, what are some of the indicators that especially the laggards can learn from those who are leading and adopt AI?
Arun, believe it or not, that might be a little bit of a fun trick question. Like with digital, when digital came, I'll pick on insurance. Insurance was a laggard. Retail was a leader. And it was really clear. You could see it with your own eyes in kind of your personal life and working with retailers and insurance companies. AI is a little bit of a different animal. It's such a tidal wave inflection point. Really, every industry is trying to figure this out right now. And we do a lot of surveys and we can cut it many different ways, but it's a little bit unclear. Our best educated guess based on what we see is that banking and financial services is likely in the lead. They're doing a lot, they probably have they have so much competitive pressure and seconds mean millions of dollars for them and their clients. So we do see a little bit more in BFS, but if I switch it from industries to use cases, just to make a point, we did a survey about which use cases are going to get transformed, and things like collaboration or software development are at the top, very obvious, marketing content. At the bottom was treasury and risk management. And it occurred to me, is there really something specific about, I don't know much about treasury and risk management. Is there something specific about that makes it, immune to AI? And the more we thought about it, we're like, you know what? They probably just aren't thinking about it correctly yet. So they don't know what's about to hit them. So when you have an inflection point like AI, a true massive sudden change, it hits everybody. And when you do these surveys, you have to watch out because the ones that look like laggards are really just showing that they're not aggressively embracing AI as they should. So we'll see. Let's ask me that in a year.
Yeah, and that brings me to another point. Yeah, maybe we should have this show again in a year time, and we can go back and look at how things have progressed. Awesome. So like you rightly said, right? I mean, there is inflection points, and you never know. Some of these use cases, some of the industries might just leapfrog, and take over. But how should companies think about measuring ROI on these AI projects? On one side, you have all the efficiencies that you talked about, right, in terms of operational efficiencies, cost efficiencies. And on the other side, you have all these innovations, which is driving people crazy, right? But there is something or the other coming in. So how should companies think about ROI?
That's a very nice way to kind of frame up the challenge because it is challenging. Now, the least challenging element of ROI is the efficiency part. So, like, for example, software development lifecycle, very standard function that maybe everybody's already outsourced and worked on software development for years, so you might see a 1% to 2% efficiency gain in some way in a typical year. But now we see when you apply AI or AI ops across the whole SDLC lifecycle, anywhere from 30 to 58%, which is shocking efficiency and productivity gain. So there is a straight ROI. And then the challenge is, well, who splits up that gain? Who profits from that? Now, on the what I would call like reinventing new processes for companies as they're innovating with AI, not just kind of sourcing IT. Time will tell, but it's all going to be around revenue or margin. But really, companies need to grow top line. And I think for the most part, the center of gravity is AI initiatives to help them be competitive, whether with a new product or a new supply chain or how they're utilizing data. And the ROI, what's interesting is I was talking to a CIO last week who said one of the challenge in kind of the automotive sector, and he said they're on this knife's edge with ROI because they have developed some really nice AI projects, but their management and kind of the culture of the organization is too scared to let go of the existing way of doing it. And they have this really long overlap between the old style and the AI project. And he's like, it's killing my ROI. So once even when you see the ROI for revenue, when do you turn off the old way of doing it in some cases? So it's just the transitions are going to make or break your ROI. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, Paul, I would just like to underline that because a lot of CIOs watch our show, and this is something for all CIOs watching. Or so, if you are a CIO or if you are in the CIO function, you better think about how are you transitioning, because as
Right.
Paul rightly said, it could just kill your ROI, and then your CFO will be after you that, hey, you promised me this, and look, this is what has happened.
Right on.
Yeah, very interesting. Paul, let's look at a much wider view now. Let's talk about geopolitics now. All right, with everything that's
Uh-oh.
coming in, Europe has its own AI, thing. Then the US has its own AI thing, right? With like Starlink coming in, China has its own thing. How do you see all of these interplay together, and what should companies be doing, especially countries that operate in multiple countries?
Right. It's tricky. And I think more than anything else, the one connecting thread with all the regulations and what's happening with geopolitics is an even more dramatic focus on cost optimization. We're seeing for the first time in more than a decade, large technology deals get larger and have longer duration. And a lot of organizations are doing even more consolidation of their largest providers. But at the same time, they're bringing in a lot more new providers, service providers, so that they can deal with the regulation. Some of them are straight up AI providers, but some of them are for cybersecurity and some of them are for data. And they're evaluating these new providers partly based on how it's going to help them manage the regulations. And now you're catching me as we're recording this, as that the topic of the day is tariffs. And that just even made it more extreme, the need for more cost reduction so that you can fund innovation, because you're not getting increased budget for them. It may be 2%, but you're not going to get a dramatic increase to fund AI in any dramatic way unless you do cost out. So it's kind of well, I would say the flip side of that coin when you're talking about geopolitics is this concept of governance and making sure that AI, yeah, I'm glad that there's a lot of regulation around it, to be honest, because there's a potential scary element to AI. You're talking about neural networks that are clearly smarter than you and me and all humans. I mean, just look at things like AlphaGo and how it beat a grandmaster way back in 2016 of Go, which shocked everybody. And people like Noam Brown at OpenAI kind of explain how if you let AI think for a little while, it will be much smarter than the smartest human. So that you got to be careful if you're experimenting with something that's smarter than all humans. And I'm glad that I think governments do need to work together with regulation bodies. And yes, companies are going to need to have to navigate through that, but it's a good thing. Sometimes regulations are a pain. This is important.
Yeah. I mean, as long as they work towards the context, the right context of humans, and world peace and things of that nature, right? Which essentially in the
Right.
right order of magnitude, then it's all good.
Right.
Yeah. So Paul, let's talk about the future a little bit. There are a lot of underhyped industries, and there's a lot of uncertainty around it. Right. But what are some of the underhyped industries in particular that you feel will sort of start bubbling up in the next 5 years, between 2025 and 2030, and maybe beyond?
It's interesting. No, it's an interesting question. One thought right off the bat is it's so interesting. There's so much happening in AI over the last couple of years, except we have yet to see, I know they're working on it, but we've yet to see the big SaaS platforms refactor for AI because it takes a long time to do that. So that's really been the chink in the armor of the progression of AI. So when I think about the next 5 years, all of the, I won't name any names, but all of the big SaaS platforms that we all use for CRM or IT service management or data or anything, that they've changed a lot around the platform with AI, but they haven't refactored their applications. So all the software companies are, I'm sure, and I know, are working on that, and that will be a dramatic change. You'll see integrated agentic AI that will make straight chat GPT or other kind of Gen AI look somewhat prehistoric. I'd say the other prediction is when you look at the amount of investment in Silicon Valley and other PE and VC areas, it's amazing. It's sort of like from the turn of the century, there's an overinvestment, so you'll see a reckoning where a lot of startups eventually will go out of business. But what came out of the dot-com bust of 2000, Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and now TikTok, all these companies that rule our world, and that the Silicon Valley driven innovation in AI right now, I don't know if everybody realizes how intense that is, but it's dramatic. There are thousands of young analysts at all these firms that are pouring over every single dollar in the global economy and figuring out how to transform that with AI. So that'll really spike things over the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's very interesting. The way you articulated, especially about how SaaS companies need to re-platform themselves into AI agents. I wonder what that market for that will look like, because now the entry barriers are even lower.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. So that brings me to another question, Paul. With all of these changes that are taking place, for the providers, for the service organizations, how should they be thinking about reskilling? I mean, we have been hearing about it a lot. Every company that you talk to has been reskilling people. But what kind of frameworks that they can adopt so that the reskilling becomes easier and the adoption is pretty more streamlined?
Boy, that's boy, the AI talent, trying to find somebody and pick up sizable amount of people that already have deep AI skills is extremely difficult. So you're right. Every company needs to reskill. I think that's the play, reskilling, and it's so interesting. And as they reskill, I think it's going to be mainly on the job training. Every company I've met for the last year has a very legitimate story of how they've got training programs, and they tell me how many thousands of people are AI certified, and it's helpful. But the reality, at least my own personal view with a lot of experience, as you said, my own personal view is on the job training will be 90% of it. So if people if companies encourage their people to really use AI, be inquisitive, not just use one tool, but realize that there are many tools and they need to be familiar with a lot of them and figure out how to write and code an agent. I think that's going to make all the difference. I will tell you one anecdote. Just last week, I was with somebody that I've known for about 10 years. And this person was always like the top technologist at the company we worked with together. And now he's the AI leader. And he wasn't an AI leader 2 years ago. He was just a very, very high-end technologist. So I think if companies take that approach and know that it's not a matter of going out and finding this rare mineral of AI people, that's going to be hard. You've got to turn your technologists and reskill them into AI-centered people. I will say ISG's done a nice job of that.
And Paul, would you share any experiences? I know a lot of that would be internal information, but was there any other information that you could share that other organization could leverage in terms of what you have done?
ISG, you know what? It's just like I said, we did certify like, almost 90% of the firm a while ago. It was over a year and a half ago. We all took a very long, detailed course on AI, and it helped a great deal. And it kind of raised our baseline. But when I think back now that it's been a year and a half, 90% of what I've learned is because everything like on the marketing side, on the sales side, how we work with our clients. I talked about how we changed our sourcing because we've sort of infused AI in everything I do. Now that I look back, it's just because we're committed. We recognize this is an important item, and I do think that there are some naysayers who wonder if they should really invest the time with AI. And no, you'll fall behind.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. And I think, one is the upskilling part, as you rightly said. And also to add to it, just being in the thick of things, right? I mean, doing is learning.
Yeah,
Yeah, certification is one part, but
that's
then
right.
when you, yeah,
Doing is learning. I like that. Yes.
yeah, yeah. All right, Paul, you spoke earlier about governance, how governance is important. So let's do a double click on that in terms of more from a futuristic standpoint between now and in the future. How should companies be thinking about governance and also ethics? There are a lot of great terms that are out there, right? IPs, who owns the IP, then, deep fakes. In some cases, funny. Some of the Instagram posts are funny, but then they also have serious ramifications in other cases. So how should a company think about these two aspects?
There's so many elements to this. I remember I was watching the American football Super Bowl, and somebody showed a couple of weeks ago, and somebody showed me this really cool viral video with all these famous people advocating for something they cared about. And I thought, oh, wow, look at all these famous people. And it turned out it was a complete deep fake, fooled me. All of my friends watching the American football game, we didn't know it was fake. And, even though they were advocating for a cause that I care about, it was terrible that, something like this, I don't want to be faked out. So it was like a little personal, like, oh gosh, this is tricky. We've heard all sorts of horror stories in many different ways. It could be how HR uses AI to look at resumes and makes ethical and all sorts of mistakes there. And I think a lot of that's being fixed. People now are catching up to the guardrails that need to be put in place. It's, um, I think that, like I said, touched on earlier, there needs to be governance around making sure that as these technologies get really smart, that they don't get a mind of their own. So just as a far-reaching implication, that might sound a little bit like science fiction, but once a neural network starts to do millions of simulations, it will come up with novel ideas that are smarter than humans, but we're all of us, ISG, everybody's experimenting with AI in some form or fashion. And when you're experimenting with something that can quickly become, smarter than humans, it needs to have governance. But there's a nice edge to it, because as I speak to many clients about this topic, they go overboard on governance and they basically smother their company with rules. And we're right at this point right now where we're all trying to figure out, okay, this first set of rules in some ways are smothering, particularly like, if you worry, I mean, you can't put your confidential company information into a public LLM, obviously, but then people take that too far and don't use a public LLM for anything, as an example. And so that very much stifles their ability to take advantage of AI. Arun, there's no easy answer to this question. It's a knife's edge. It's if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. But I think right now, when I see both providers and enterprises, they're trying to figure out. Honestly, we do a lot of work in governance, and your company does a lot of work in governance, and that's why, because right now it takes a lot of hand holding to make sure you have the balance of staying, legal and ethical, but also not falling behind. It's tricky. It's tricky.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. If it was easy, everybody would have solved it by now. But it's
Yeah.
evolutionary. Yeah, we have to watch and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Paul, let's talk about IT outsourcing. We have seen a lot of disruptions, let's say in the contact center world, in the legal space, and those are use cases that you spoke about earlier. As an IT services provider, how should they be thinking about the traditional IT outsourcing versus AI infused IT outsourcing?
Well, one way to look at it is uh, uh, not hesitating at all as a service provider to deploy AI ops in the core sourcing of IT or business process operations, because we see it. This isn't like Paul Gottzegen's theory. If I look at the data of the ISG-led advised large sourcing transactions for IT operations or business processes operations, the smart providers have been using AI ops for more than 6 months now. And we'll see it because the way we'll see it the most, where it really comes out, is when you look at let's say we have a typical ISG advised deal, and let's say there's 4 providers that are in the invite consideration, and you look at the promises they make on cost reductions over, say, a 5-year contract. With AI ops, you should see anywhere from a 20, 30, maybe a 40% promised reduction by the end of year 2 at the least. Now, this is in a world where if you showed 3% 2 years ago, that would have been fine. And you have to be prepared to offer that. And then you have to have the AI ops implemented in every aspect of testing and software development and everything that a provider normally does. But the one thing I will say in terms of how it will change the providers, I strongly believe, I'm like 99.9% sure, this doesn't delete jobs. It doesn't, everyone will still have a job and work 5 days a week. There's so much for us all to do. There's always these fears that companies or people have for technologies like this. It's the first place they go. I don't see that. It'll reshape jobs. So like GitHub Copilot makes it so that maybe you don't have to go to a top university and study computer science for 4 years and learn all these programming languages, so much as just understand how to use GitHub Copilot very effectively and know enough to be able to then polish and perfect and debug from there. So that's a big change, but you still need people to program and strategize. So there's plenty of jobs. It's more that they're AI oriented jobs.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of time when these pivots happen, like industrialization, and we have learned it all the way, right? Even in as early as Y2K or the dot-com bust, jobs have reshaped themselves. People have learned new skills
Right.
and started doing other things.
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Right, Paul. So let's go on to the next segment of our show, which is called the rapid fire round.
Okay.
Right. So
I'm
here's
scared.
my first question. Yeah. No, it's not, Gary. So here's the first question. Uh, Coffee or ChatGPT equivalent? What is your morning inspiration?
Oh my gosh. That's a good one. Okay. Well, I love my morning routine. Coffee starts with coffee, meditation, walking the dog, making my daughter's breakfast. And then at 8 a.m., yeah, I might open up. You said ChatGPT. I'm a Claude person. I'll open up Claude from Anthropic and use it as almost like a co-pilot. So coffee, then Claude, CNC.
Oh, wonderful. That's like that. But to everybody who's listening in, I wanted to underline one thing that Paul said. It starts with a very human-centric view. So coffee, breakfast for the children, for the family, a morning walk, and these are extremely important in an AI mad world. So thank
Great
you,
point.
Paul. This is great. This is great for anybody listening in. All right. So moving on to the second one. What is the one AI myth that you would debunk forever?
Oh my gosh, these are so good. You know what? It's almost building off what we talked about a minute or two ago. AI will not make it so that we all get Fridays off and get a 3-day work week. No, AI just is going to accelerate the intensity of competitive pressure. We're all going to work just as hard. Well, we might get more done. It'll be more interesting. It'll be different. There might be a new set of winners and losers, but sorry, everybody, you still are going to have to work on Fridays. I hear so many people at different panels or stuff say, "Oh yeah, it's going to get a half day off." No way, no how. I wish. Not going to happen.
Yeah, so be prepared to keep working hard as you are, but at the same time, reskill and start doing maybe other things. Great message, Paul. All right, the third one. What is the most overrated tech buzzword?
Ooh, there's a lot to choose from. You know what? I'll be a little fun here and say Gen AI, only because you know, think of like Gen AI as the steam engine that opened the door to the Industrial Revolution, and that we're in like year 2 or 3 of the invention after that, and everybody sees what's coming, and no one knows exactly how just yet, and people are still doing some of the same methods that they were, but with spurts of this new approach that Gen AI allowed. But the stuff that everybody's starting to do with agentic AI is already making Gen AI look somewhat primitive, and it'll be truly remarkable to watch this space evolve with agentic.
Yeah, very interesting answer, Paul. Very interesting answer. The next one, and the reason I bring this up is, Paul, because you have spent so much time in leadership roles. And I think one of the other things that people can learn from this show, apart from all the AI things you spoke about, is your own leadership style. So what's your leadership mantra? Do you believe in fail fast or plan meticulously?
Oh, succeed fast. Succeed fast. I will say I have my teams back and encourage them to try new things and empower them. And I'll celebrate their failure. They'll never get in trouble for failing, but I won't have I always bristle when I hear somebody say, "Let's go out there, team, and fail fast." I'm like, no. Our goal is to succeed fast. And it's okay if you fail, but I'm not going to have as my rally cry, go out there and fail. Never. Succeed fast.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, failures are part of the success journey, right?
Right.
It's not the journey, but yeah, it's part of the journey.
Well, right. To be clear, I learned everything I've learned by failing, by making
Yeah,
mistakes. I've made every dumb mistake that you could possibly imagine, and it is how I learn. So I get it. We all fail. I fail every day, but it's not, I don't wake up and say, I'm going to fail today. No, no. No, I'm convinced I'm going to succeed, and then I get knocked in the head and get back up and dust off my pants and try again.
yeah. Wonderful, beautiful. Love it. And then the last one I have for you: that if not AI, what field would you pioneer?
You know what? Here's a little secret. Nobody knows. Now they're going to know, whoever's watching. I am awesome at custom travel plans for my family. Somehow I got this job years ago, and my family, we go on trips every summer, and I've perfected. We went to Croatia, we went to Portugal, and there's a lot of research, and now AI is playing a role in that. But I would pioneer. I would make a business out of being a custom travel planner. I'm good at it, and I like doing it. I'm your
Yeah,
guy.
Paul, maybe you should blog about it because I think that's going to be a brilliant blog, and I'm sure a
Okay.
lot of people would just great to hear how you plan it, because that's one of the challenges that we personally have as a family, right? And we talk to all kinds of friends, read multiple reviews when we go for vacations, but it's never that perfect blend.
I will. Thanks for that
Yeah.
inspiration.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that with the viewers. So, Paul, that brings us toward the end of the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to our viewers.
This has been great. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you.